Hello, everyone, our dear listeners and everybody who's following us YouTube. Welcome. I have a beautiful guest today, dear Becki. Hello, Becki. Welcome.
Hello, my darling. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We're starting with Namaste today.
We are.
Both. Yeah, welcome. I would love to hear yourself, introduce yourself, and also maybe talk a little bit about the big love movement. Even the name of it has huge power. I can feel the power of it. I would love to hear about your journey. There has been a career change in your story, and also how did the big love movement start?
Oh, thank you. Where do I begin? Let's start with who I am. I am Becki Marie, and I founded Big Love Movement in lockdown of 2020. I am a wellness educator and a yoga and mindfulness mentor. So I help people reconnect to their bodies. And by that, I mean we live very much in our heads and we perhaps ignore or miss the signals our body gives us that we are feeling stressed or overwhelmed. And I educate people and empower people with tools such as breathwork to help them rebalance and to recognize those signals to rebalance. And the Big Love movement is not just about movement of your body. As I mentioned, I'm a yoga mentor as well. Movement for me is about creating a change, not only within our own bodies, around our physical and emotional well-being, but a movement within society and the modern culture that we live in, especially in our workplaces and our home lives, to really to really get a deeper understanding and appreciation of our emotional and physical well-being, how the two are interconnected. So this movement begins with yourself, with learning about yourself and finding the tools and resources that work for you and supporting your own well-being, and then the ripple effect of that throughout your life and your family or community.
I think we're already in your movement with Breath Hub's
Yes.
mission and what we've been doing.
Yeah.
I've been, I think, on that mission to help humans understand the body-mind connection and how our psychology and physiology are both like fully aligned. And we have I think big responsibility because there are still a lot of people who do not understand the importance of breath work, mindfulness, connecting with themselves. And I would like to also ask you, like, how did this career shift happen? Because I have some ideas about it, but just guessing how it happened, because I have a lot of friends who, after starting breathwork, after starting meditation or mindfulness, or just in general, after connecting deeper with themselves, did experience those kinds of changes, like career changes, changes in their relationships, where they live. I would like to ask you, like, because there are some people also I know of in the corporate world and in the world who are kind of like who have this anxiety around, okay, but what if I deeply connect with myself and I find out that my life isn't working and there is this huge change I need to make. Maybe you can inspire us all.
I hope so. Thank you so much. And I work with Breath Hub because our values align. Three of my biggest values are to educate, to inspire, and to empower people. So I hope my story does lend itself to inspiring. As I guess everyone's story, it has so many layers. But right at the bottom of it, the root of it was my mental well-being. And I really struggled since I was a teenager with my well-being, with depression, with anxiety and self-harm and bullying, and lots of layers to that as well, including grief. So it wasn't until from teens, if I knew what I knew now as a teenager, my life would be very different. But I'm also very grateful for those experiences because they, what I call the spiritual nudges along the way that encouraged me to where I'm heading. So it was in my 20s I discovered yoga and mindfulness. But it wasn't until my late 20s and early 30s that I started to allow that curiosity, or gave that curiosity some meaning and deepened my practice with first yoga, and then the yoga helped with the meditation. And I guess a lot of practitioners must experience this too. Our trainings start from a desire to deepen the understanding around why these tools are helping us so much. Because to practice them is one thing, to experience that support and well-being is amazing, and that can really help sustain our well-being. And then the curiosity, and perhaps it might sound a little bit cringy, but I believe that my trainings were my cracking open, and they were my hardest years, because they were the realization that my life wasn't as I wanted it to be, and I was the person who was in control of that. And all those years I'd known my life wasn't making me happy for various reasons. I had bad relationships. I didn't seem to be progressing in my career the way everyone else was able to. And again, that mental well-being was just so challenging for me to understand, let alone support myself. So it just became, I need to learn more about this. And then when you start to learn in order to deepen your own practice, it then was like, my calling was, I need to share this with people. Because if I had known this as a teenager, or through my 20s when I was really struggling in my career and my relationships, how different my experience of those events could have been. So not necessarily changing your life and dismissing the experiences you've had, but I think these mindfulness and breath work can really help us to move through the challenges that we inevitably experience in this experience of life, in a nutshell. And sorry, I could just talk for days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna let you talk. And exactly. And I have this strange, weird idea that mindfulness and breath work and meditation, all of these practices, especially when done regularly, like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to found Breath Up, because I wanted to create content people can use around breath work so that they can use it daily without getting bored. It can get boring when you practice breath work every day. Try to practice breath work every day by yourself. It may get boring. And that's why we exist. But I have this strange and very, very weird idea that when we talk about breath work and meditation and mindfulness and connecting with ourselves, as they are great coping mechanisms and they are great systems to keep us healthy and well, I still think we are underestimating the power of them all, because I think the main power, the main value comes from, it's kind of like that's the secret of life, just connecting with yourself. Because it's like, what happens when we, for all of the people who are listening to us right now, what happens when we start practicing daily breath work and meditation and techniques to connect us deeply with ourselves? Something magical happens. It's kind of like the doors of the universe start opening, and it's like you become this lucky individual. And you said, like, I was wondering why I can't move like the other people in the corporate world can move. I don't believe, but I see that people who are connected with themselves move very easy and fast in life. But when we are disconnected from ourselves, I was there in my 20s as well, like when things shut down and nothing was moving, and it was kind of like all of the doors closing on my face. And that's why I was like, what's happening here? What's happening in my world? And the more I connected with myself, the more I took time to pause and reconnect with myself, the more I built that time to know myself. To know thyself is a big thing, I think. It's like my life started changing miraculously. I think that's also something to be talked about, which we don't talk much. It's like, it's like I became this extra lucky individual just because I'm taking time to connect with myself. It's not only, of course, it has health benefits and we cope with life easier and all that, but it's kind of like there is this secret formula where life, the whole universe, is waiting for all of us to connect with ourselves. And when you do, it's like the universe goes, yay, you're doing it, you're on the right track, I'm going to support you.
I love, there were so many words that were making my brain, my whole body go, "Pause." You know, the word pause. I talk so much in my community about how are you being called to slow down? Where are you creating pauses in your day to just reconnect to how you're fit, to even notice how you are feeling? And I talk about self-awareness, which comes from that connection, which is that connection to yourself, as being this switch. And once it's like a dimmer switch. So you can start to turn it up. So daily mindfulness, even starting on a weekly mindfulness journey with a bit of breath work, or just knowing one technique that's going to bring you back into a state of like, okay, I've got this, is magic. That's a pause, and a productive one. If we can build on that, you start to turn that self-awareness switch up. We start to get to know ourselves even more. And when we talk about getting to know ourselves, I'm specifically talking about getting to appreciate our body's signals going, I might need a bit of attention. And the fastest and simplest way for us to respond to any over alertness and, you know, off balanceness is our breath. But the minute you start to turn that switch up, then it's on. You can never switch it down. You can never turn it off. The only way is up and on. And that self-awareness stays there. And you become so aware, and you can immediately sense in a room you walk into how your body changes to the people in the room, to a conversation that's being had in the workplace. How many challenging conversations have we had, and perhaps haven't responded as well as we would have liked to, for ourselves, let alone for the experience we were in for the conversation. And I think that connection to yourself starts with that pause, with saying, do you know what, I'm going to do one thing today, and it doesn't have to be for 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be for an hour of yoga, or it could be a 5-minute breath technique on the hub, or 15 minutes of mindfulness a day has been proven to really help us to connect with ourselves in a way that we can move through life's challenges better. That's magic to me. That is the key to the universe.
Yeah, that's right. It is the key. It's like, yeah, it's amazing. I would like to also, I know, I'm sure you have some case studies around, the corporate coaching sessions and what's happening in the corporate environment. Of course, my first general question would be, it will be too generic, but it's like, what are the people in the corporate environment facing nowadays? Because like I've been hearing like on LinkedIn, this whole burnout syndrome. It's like I see like almost everyone is talking about, like, again, it's like with the pandemic we all stopped and we kind of like were inside and by ourselves. Some people healed and got understood the importance of just taking time for yourself, and then we started running and running and running again, and now we're facing another burnout, and people talk about burnout. Yeah, so the first question is generic, like what are the people in the corporate environment, experiencing? What are the main problems, issues, and like the case studies of, the case studies you've done in the corporate environment, and how, your work, mindfulness, breath work has been helping people, and how are you helping people transform their lives and transform the corporate, environment? What's happening there?
Wow. Yeah. I think, firstly, what came up when you were asking that question was, we're very fortunate that mindfulness, wellness in the workplace, mental well-being has become a topic that is being spoken about, that burnout is a topic that's being spoken about. The unfortunate flip side of that is the fact it's being talked about because it's more common, and therefore it has to be talked about. There is no choice now, but this is the movement. This is something that I'm feeling very passionate right now about, because I don't think for my parents' generation, this was a topic that anyone was even aware of, certainly wouldn't have spoken about. So firstly, praise be that we are in a society where this is being communicated. However, there needs to be an education around what burnout means, how that impacts your well-being. And I think the biggest challenge that people in the workplace are facing is that we have lost the ability to appreciate that to do our best, to be our best, we need to rest. And that doesn't mean stopping. I think there is this misconception that resting means being lazy, not doing enough. And we have already mentioned that word pause. And there for businesses, so if you think at the top end of the business, then the corporation, we have then the community that supports this business, this organization that has been suffering and been through challenges. And, you know, obviously we all know the economic situation that we are all in right now. So there is a pressure from this level, from the top level, which filters down to the people who are there to really energize and support this organization, this pressure to make up for those lost years of business, to not be knocked down by yet another year of, or, you know, to not let this situation affect us, and to push on. And we're good people who want to do our best, and that often means to do whatever is asked of us and more. And so as much as this pressure trickles down to these amazing people who are supporting your organization and community, the challenge is then that these people, we are struggling to keep up. As everyone, we have more than just our work as our responsibility and our passion. And I have on my vision board, and I looked at it before we went live, was taking care of yourself is productive. And production is what businesses and organizations want. However, what I'm feeling and hearing from my clients and within my own community is a workforce. People are burnt out. That starts by, that's the end result. Okay, that's the worst case scenario. Inevitable, your body goes, enough, you've ignored me for this long. But what I'm hearing is exhaustion, not enough time in the day, forgetfulness, making mistakes, then feeling guilt and shame about making that mistake, and having challenging conversations. So then this all layers on to the anxiety, to the overwhelm, and to the pressure that is building within not only the organization to do well, you know, for the good of their audience, for their people, their customers, but for the pressure on the people trying to create that service, create that product, and share the goods of that business. To if they're not feeling their best, they're not going to be doing their best. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges that we're all facing.
Yeah, how I see the situation myself is, it's like all this life has become very overwhelming for many people, because there are a lot of outside triggers, like a lot of stuff that is going to distract you from, you know, your own journey or whatever, like the social media, the whole brands and businesses. It's like that's great, like flourishing. But there's also a lot of distraction, and I think that's why people are feeling, I don't have time. And the thing is, it's like, if as a breath expert, the one thing I need to say is, when we don't take time to pause, it's like we lose our capability, like our ability to fully breathe. And I think that's one of the most important and biggest problems, because what happens when we can't fully breathe, and it's like, if you don't take a pause, if you're not taking pauses during the day, you lose your ability to fully breathe, and your breath just gets squeezed. You start breathing shallow. So all this life is too much is causing shallow breathing habits. And like 70% of the people, you know, around the world, research is telling us that have shallow breathing habits, or not using their breathing fully, which leads to having less oxygen in the body, having less ATP, less energy. You have less oxygen for your cells to renew, tissues to renew, organs to renew, brain to renew itself and stay healthy. It's like, of course, if you don't have enough oxygen in the brain, you will forget things. Of course, you will make mistakes. Of course, you will feel tired, and your body will drain itself because it's not getting the food, the main energy, the source it needs. So that's why I have seen, it's like the research is telling us that it's like regular breath work, I believe, is the fastest and the most effective way for the 21st century people, because still not many people have even 15 days or half an hour to meditate or to pause, which is okay. But you can renew yourself, your body at least, and your whole system just with 3 minutes of breath work every day, just by increasing the oxygen level this much. It's gonna change everything. You will stop feeling tired and you'll become more creative and all that. So I'm gonna come to that. It's like if you were to tell us like 3 main benefits of breath work you see for employee well-being, especially for people who are working full-time on the corporate environment, like 3 main benefits.
Focus, creativity. There's so many other words I want to use, but for me it is to calm. And I nearly didn't use that word because I know I have had a lot of resistance to the word calm, because businesses have misunderstood that means their people are chilled out, especially coming from a yogi. So for me, it's a focus, creativity, and calm. Because focus, we talked about that connection to our brain. We seem to think that our neck, disconnects at some point. There's nothing going on there. It connects our head to our body. So our body and our mind, our body and our brain, because our mind is a different thing. So the mind is the entity that has those wonderful thoughts, creative ones, negative ones, and inspirational ones. But our brain is connected to our body, and the body and the brain send messages to one another. It's a two-way street, okay? And the focus comes from the fact that breath work can help us to reset our nervous system, to send the message back to our brain that this is not a dangerous situation. I'm thinking right now, focus for a project to get done, a deadline, or even to present in a meeting, as I know a few people in my community need to do. Focus, knowing what you need to say, happens when we stop, we take a few moments to breathe, and you're able to literally reset your body to go, this isn't a dangerous situation. Okay, this isn't gonna kill me. This is scaring me, but I have got this. Bring it back into focus, because we can calm and soothe the nervous system. The brain can start to fire again and go, okay, this is what I'm focusing on. Because we need to understand that when we're feeling stressed, we shift into a different part. So parts of our body don't need to be working, because if there's an imminent danger, what needs to be happening is your muscles need to be ready to go. That's where we feel tense, because our muscles are like, right, where am I running to? Who am I about to, And yes, we may want to do that sometimes in our workday. However, focus, thinking more clearly, thinking more on point, that's where the creativity comes back in. I use breath work and also yoga nidra, a mindful technique, to help me on the days when I perhaps haven't been sleeping very well, or I've had a very busy morning and I've got a creative project that needs my attention and I really need to connect to my creativity, but I'm just feel a bit sapped of energy. I use breath work to help, again, my body to rebalance and shift my energy a little bit more into my fight flight state, only enough that I feel a little bit more energized, and that my blood starts pumping a bit more, and I start to feel like motivated and passionate about something. So stress gets to be good and bad. We have eustress, which is the positive stress, whole different podcast. But that creativity, because you've been able to focus, you're able to think more clearly, and you're open to other people's ideas. You've got shifts of perspective. That helps your creativity, because we can, when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what happens? Yes, it feels like our body's closing in and it feels like the blinkers go on and you can only see what you're thinking. And that sometimes isn't enough, because those thoughts maybe aren't very helpful or supportive. And when I said the word calm, I'm not talking about, hey, let's just chill out at work today. It's fine, it will get done. I'm talking about having the ability to our breath to calm our nervous system, and we have a balance to be in harmony.
Yeah.
So to
So
come in,
maybe, yeah, maybe I'm going to add something kind of like a word. Maybe the calm you are referring to is kind of like this content, like being
centered,
centered.
perhaps.
Yeah,
Yes,
centered.
there you go.
Yeah, kind of like, it's not like chill, but it's more like, and that's a heavy centered. It's not like flying
Grounded, yeah,
high, but it's grounded.
it's that balance between not flipping again, the same as going into our stress response, and that not being very positive or productive. We can dip too far into that chill out, which is great at nighttime, great to wind down at the end of the day, but in the middle of the workday, this is what employers aren't wanting. They want the team to be productive. So we need to find that harmony between bringing ourselves back into balance, into that state where we're able to calmly present that meeting confidently, calmly, and in a very connected way to ourselves and how we're communicating to people around us. So calm communication, calm responses, a centered way of being that makes your team, especially if you are a leader in your business, to feed from that energy. You know, we feed off people's energy, right? So you want to be in a calm and centered place in your workplace to be able to get your work done, but also to inspire your community, the people around you.
Yeah, I love it, especially as a leader, as yeah, for everybody, but also for people who will lead. You do reflect that energy. It's like if you're stressed or if you're distracted, if you're not fully centered, you do reflect that energy, and what you say isn't understood well, and then then we have a lot of problems, of course. So what are the three things you would suggest to people who are working from home? Because there are more and more people working from home, and I hear from my students and our users that they're having all kinds of problems, like focusing issues, a lot of distractions, and it's two meetings are on top of each other and they don't have breaks. I hear people saying like, I didn't even have lunch today, I was working the whole day. It's kind of like the days got more packed when home, and people have other distractions now. What are the three things you would suggest to people who are working from home? Like, it could be how to start the day, maybe something during the day or at the end of the day.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, this is definitely something I'm hearing too. So it's not a contained challenge. And if you are experiencing that, listening to this, you aren't alone. But my three, because I experience this too. I work from home and I work for myself, which has its own challenges. I would say there's three words that came up there: environment, transition, and I want to say snippets, so I'll go into those. So what I mean by transition first is almost working the day backwards, because sometimes people find it easier to work things backwards. So at the end of your workday, you want to transition. If you're working from home, what I found most challenging for people is that shift out of work into home life, because they're working and living and breathing in the same, possibly even the same room as they woke up in, or spending time with the children or their partner or friends within. So for me, it's about how can I start and end my day? What is the transitions that I can create and put into my life? And they don't have to be huge chunks of time, but like snippets of time that create transitions, that little fade from one into the other. So at the end of the day, you might want to wind down, and you might want to then, different people, different things. For me, getting outside in nature is a must every day too, and that's what self-care for me is: getting outside every day. I change how I breathe the minute I step out into nature. It's a natural thing my body does for me, as will everyone listen to this. Your body does the same. So transitions, number one, is how you start and end your day is going to really support you to create that structure that we are missing by not working in an office. And that is something that we're not very good at. We're creatures of habit. What we have been used to is working in an office and being told when we have to be there and when we leave. And yes, you might extend that by working in the office, but you always have to come to the office and leave the office. So creating transitions for yourself that are going to help you start your day in the way that you want to go into your day. So you probably want to feel energized, inspired, quite content already in yourself, so centered. And to end the day, how do you want to feel, and what are the activities that would help you to feel that? And then I talked about snippets. So it's creating breaks. So if you're a leader, if you are the one responsible for those meetings, it is your responsibility to ensure your team have a 15-minute window at the front and end of those meetings, minimum. But everyone needs the toilet. Everyone needs to eat food, and everyone needs to take a few moments to go, okay. And when we pause, we process what happened. If we're going from meeting to meeting to meeting, chances are something from that meeting isn't going to end up getting done because it wasn't simply written down or taken the time enough to really digest what happened and what was talked about. So those snippets are really important to create, not only around meetings, but if you aren't in control of those meetings, how can you suggest them to be? And for yourself, where are you then creating time to go, I'm going to take my lunch break. I'm going to actually go and take a walk around the block. Or I'm going to just sit for a moment away from my desk in a different environment, gaze at a candle, take a breath, read a book, a page of a book, not scroll through social media because I have a whole different thing about that. But yes, and then, yeah, self-care, where we can look after ourselves. How are we looking after ourselves?
Yeah, thank you. These are great. I'm sure our listeners are learning a lot and getting in. And yeah, and a topic for another day, but especially for people who are doing their own businesses like yourself and like myself working. I think I'm going to just add one thing. I think also remembering that, because people say days go by and, I have stuff to do, couldn't finish. Understanding that working in your business and working on your business are two different things, and maybe scheduling your days in such a way that you leave some days in between so that you can work on your business, like focus on your intentions again, like vision, because it's kind of like, of course, those pauses we talked about, that's inside those pauses. But I also see that, especially in the corporate environment, when people don't stop to think about their intention and vision and goals, every week, preferably, a couple of hours every week, then they feel lost. It's like that's the reason why we feel lost. Of course, not because we're not posing, but also not because we're focusing on our business and focusing on what's meaningful for us. And again, connecting with why am I doing this? And of course, that's another topic to cover, like fulfillment and knowing your why and all. Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed every minute of our podcast today. Thank you very much for your time, for your energy.
Thank
Is
you.
there something, Becki, you want to add, before we end?
I think it's something that's been coming to my mind whilst we've been talking is I'm often, and I never hear this directly, I hear it through people who contact me about working with them for their workplace, but they often are then telling me that they've been hearing from their people, why do I need someone to tell me how to breathe? And you touched on
A
it
great
earlier.
point. Yeah.
You touched on it earlier. You gave the fact about 70% of us, are experiencing shallow breathing, which creates that very tightness in our body and a lot of tension. Then we create physical sensations, right? Physical problems and challenges in our body. And what I have to say to that is that one of the facts I've learned is that in general, overall, and this is quite phenomenal, we have this wonderful muscle called the diaphragm, which we barely use, right? And as we know about this as breath practitioners. But the fact I found absolutely amazing was that generally we only use 10% of that range. So no wonder we're breathing all this shallow breath. It's all shallow because we're not using this muscle, because we have this fear of letting that belly expand and swell and our body to move and breathe. So we make ourselves small. So I just want to say to people, if that is your thought process as to why do I need someone to teach me how to breathe, take a moment to explore one short breath technique and just see what you learn from that experience. And what I mean by that is experience, like, what does it feel like for you? And how do you feel before? How do you feel after? Because that there is the answer. And I'm sure something will go, oh, it's like that aha moment. And that is going to open the door.
Yeah, and also maybe a moment of, wow, I just couldn't do it.
Yes.
And then you see the problem. Wow.
Yes.
It's really hard to breathe for me, you know. I've been breathing really wrong all these years. And yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Creatures
Thank
of
you
habit.
so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much and hope to see you soon.
Yes,
In one of
absolutely.
our projects.
Yes, can't wait. Lots of love, big love. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
big love, big love. Bye.